When I was talking about the show, I thought to myself, this would be a really great resource for new parents and new mothers that are in the position that I'm in, that have questions, that don't know what to ask. And this was going to be a way for me to kind of find out what those questions were for myself.
My background is in human and organizational systems and human development. And just based on my own birth experiences, which were a number of years ago, I've come to the conclusion that people want to make their own choices, but they want to make informed choices. So what we're aiming to do with this TV series is to present information, to bring in subject matter experts, to talk to parents, and explore the kaleidoscope of choices that are available to new parents. Like life itself, you can never totally plan for the transformation to parenthood. It's unique for each person. For many people, challenges can arise that are extremely difficult to deal with. Sometimes just hearing other people's stories can make it easier to deal with our own. In this episode, our guests will share stories of infertility, traumatic birth, pregnancy loss, and dealing with cancer in pregnancy. We'd like to warn you that some of the content may be disturbing or upsetting to some people. While parts are heartbreaking, they'll also talk about how to cope, and you'll even hear how they've triumphed despite the difficulties. We'll start by weaving together the stories of Alexis and Randy as they talk about their struggles with infertility.
The transformation to parenthood is amazing and beyond anything you can imagine, and world-altering and universe-tipping and terrifying, and the most important thing you may end up doing in your life, and it is a journey.
It's different, when infertility comes, and I'm so glad you're speaking of it because, it's 1 in 6 Canadian couples who require assistance to conceive. It's a lot. We're coming up to the 3-year mark since we started trying to conceive. About a year ago, just over a year ago, we saw the fertility clinic here in the city, and we're told that we had about a 1% chance of conceiving naturally.
How I found progesterone was my issue was actually one of my really good friends after my last miscarriage was like, you have to see a naturopath and you have to do this hormonal spit testing through Rocky Mountain Analytical. And at that point I was like, well, I kind of would like some answers, so let's do that.
The day we found out that we would need help, I had a birth that I had to go to, and I had to pull myself off the floor and I had to go, and it was the most powerful birth. It was so beautiful, and I just was really grateful. I thanked the universe. I was like, thank you for this reminder, for this offering, because you're telling me that I can.
And I booked an appointment to see Dr. Irwin at Marda Loop, and went in, and she heard I wanted results and I wanted them quickly, so we got started right away.
It's the opposite of what I would have desired in terms of getting pregnant. The biggest loss for me in this process has been not being able to conceive naturally.
Results came back and she was quite surprised I even was able to maintain a pregnancy for as long as I was, considering how low my levels were.
My transformation is evolving still. I'm stronger than I thought I could be. When we first received our diagnosis, I was not doing well. My husband was much better than I.
I had a referral in with the Repeat Pregnancy Loss Clinic. We decided we were just going to see if they gave me progesterone or not.
You need to have the right care provider. And again, because it's not really managed here in Canada, that it's really easy to just be thrown into a clinic that's really busy, where you're just kind of a chart number, where there's no one to pay attention to what's happening for you emotionally as well as physically.
From ovulation, I took it until 14 weeks, and then you wean off.
Just on Friday, I met with a woman who's, kind of just on the brink of waiting to go to the fertility clinic. And the tips that I gave to her are the same to anyone else, is don't give up hope.
The day I felt this baby was staying probably was much later on, just because I had the progesterone, and I was nervous about weaning off of that and trusting my body to take over, because your placenta starts taking over that.
And you have to keep living. You know, it can't just be everything. You know, it is in moments, but I mean, my greatest gift has been spending time with families, you know, traveling, living my life, not just waiting for this pregnancy to happen.
It really stuck when I had my 18-week gender ultrasound. Baby looked really healthy, and I found out we were blessed with a little girl. So that's when I started to relax and, okay, this is happening.
Now, when I reflect back, I wouldn't change this process. As hard as it's been, I love the woman who's evolving through this. And, you know, I had to make peace, like a long time ago. You know, right? I think when I made peace about not conceiving naturally, I had to make peace about, I have to be okay whatever the outcome is.
Some women experience trauma during birth. Psychologist Sharon provides background on birth trauma. And again, we'll hear from Randy about her own birth experience and her journey to healing.
Traumatic birth, to me, is defined by the mother.
I didn't even realize how much it had affected me until one of my other friends had an induction and things went perfectly for her. And I was like, oh, well, I'm a little jealous of that. And then I realized it was more than just jealousy, and I was having some pretty huge emotions.
There's a lot of ways to experience trauma that don't pull the full diagnosis. So research out of Australia, out of Italy, out of Scandinavian countries says roughly 1/3 of mothers experience trauma in some form or another, such that it revisits her in the postpartum period.
I reached out to a community that I had been a part of online, and I said, I'm not doing well, I'm not coping with this. How can I deal with this?
This may be one of the most important events in the mother's life. So whatever causes her to feel she's experienced trauma is worth noting, worth supporting, and worth helping her heal.
A woman responded back and said, I can do a healing birth circle for you.
And when the baby's healthy, we as a culture tend to say, well, at least you have a healthy baby, that's what matters. And that isn't the only thing that matters.
It was a very intimate group. There was not more than 15 people, some that I hadn't met before, but I felt like I knew them. We gathered, and there was music playing, and I got to tell my birth story. There was no interruptions. No one was like, oh, this happened in mine. I was able to fully speak it and go through the emotions. And then at the end, each woman told me a positive of what they had heard in my story. They gave me power back. So they found something that I thought I'd lost everything. And they gave me my power. And it was perfect.
Another thing that few people expect is pregnancy loss. Counselor Amy reflects on the range of experiences that parents go through. Letta and Randy share their experiences and offer words of wisdom for dealing with pregnancy loss.
I never thought it would happen to me. And I think like many moms we might be healthy most of our life, and then all of a sudden there's a surprise.
The question about pregnancy loss is really an important question because it's unfortunately such a common experience.
The thing is, we feel safe, right? At 3 months, the chances of losing a child go down significantly.
My experience with pregnancy loss has not been a short journey. We had our first loss shortly after we got married. We got pregnant on the honeymoon, and I was on birth control, and we were like, oh, okay, we're going to be parents. And then we found out it was multiple. So, okay, there's more than one. And then one by one, the babies passed.
I had my first daughter, no problems. Second pregnancy was going really well. And then all of a sudden, I felt like there was something wrong. There were signs that something was wrong. I went into the hospital. Loss can't go really any great way, but I would say that it was a pretty traumatic way to lose a baby.
I saw my doctor, and she really wanted me to have a natural miscarriage. And at that point, I was 20 years old, and I just wanted it over. But she refused to send me for a D&C or anything. So I confirmed miscarriage in October. I ended up septic in the hospital in December. And then they booked me for a D&C, and that morning my body decided to finally do the work.
So I went in, we found out in the middle of the night that I had lost the baby, it wasn't alive, and they sent me home. And so what happened later that night is I actually went into labor, and I was over 4 months pregnant.
And then I had 4 more before my son. Didn't really tell doctors about those ones. I just knew I'd be like, oh, my period's just 126 days late. It's normal. Because I had a feeling whether babies were gonna make it.
That night, I just started losing it, right? My husband and I, we actually saw it, you know, like it came out, we saw it. And then of course with everything else coming out, you know, you're crying, you don't know what to do.
And then I had an IUD and it rejected, and the doctor was like, well, it might be time to try for a baby. No idea why she said that, but I'm very thankful that she did, and we got blessed with our son Quentin. And we found out later on I have low progesterone, and so the IUD gave me progesterone, so my baby was able to stick. And then I've had 2 more. I had one in January last year and one in July of last year. And then we confirmed that it was a progesterone issue, and super easy fix. Took 7 years to get there, but super easy fix.
One of the things I've learned from the clients I've worked with is that there's such a wide range of emotional responses to an early pregnancy loss.
My advice to people when they've been told to have a pregnancy loss is to do what works for them.
I think that the most important thing is that when something goes wrong, you don't try to deal with it all by yourself, or think that for some reason you're the only one that's dealing with it.
One thing that lots of couples seem to struggle with is when they are kind of experiencing the same loss, how is it that they can be having such drastically different responses to the loss?
And I think it's important to go through a healing process with any sort of loss that you have.
Some of the ways people can give support is just by listening. Like if the person wants to talk about it, allowing them that. It's something that can make people feel uncomfortable and you don't want to ask, but genuinely saying, how are you? And listening to that.
It's really a time where it's important to be pretty kind and gentle and nurturing of yourself, but also your partner, and to know that there's no one right way to grieve a loss.
Just being validated in your feelings. Like if you're feeling major grief over this loss, not being like, oh, there's another one, or that baby just wasn't meant to happen.
It doesn't go away. The healing process, it definitely helps with time. However, you know, it's loss, right? It's always going to be there. There's always going to be scars from that. And I think the important thing is to talk to people, to understand that you're not the only person that's dealing with that.
When you can talk about sort of what you're really feeling and what you're really thinking, then it's less isolating and you're less alone.
Just talking to women who had never told anybody before and were dealing with it by themselves, I just don't think that's okay. I think that you need to go to people, you need to be open about it, and then people come out of the woodwork. It's crazy how people come out of the woodwork with the same issue when you tell them it's okay to talk about something.
Welcome back. In this segment, registered midwife Chantal shares her story about being diagnosed with cancer during pregnancy, her quest for care, her beautiful water birth, and what she learned about herself.
In 2009, I had been diagnosed with a malignant melanoma in my right eye that could spread to the liver or bones. And so we were told back then to just wait till I was officially in remission. So when the 5-year mark came, we celebrated and then we said, let's try to have a baby. So we were quite lucky that way. I got pregnant almost right away. And we had 2 weeks of pure joy. And then I went for a regular checkup to make sure that everything was in check with my cancer. And It turned out that the tumor had grown substantially in a very short amount of time. Now all of a sudden I was pregnant with cancer and a midwife, and still very with a busy practice that I had intended on continuing to work for a while throughout my pregnancy. So a lot of things to juggle all at once. So 8 weeks pregnancy, we find out that the cancer is back and with a vengeance. And right away, my specialist said, okay, we need to remove your eye. And because that's where the malignant melanoma was. And I just wasn't ready for that. And I said, can just give me a bit of time. I need to process this first. And I said, I'm newly pregnant. I'm a midwife. I know what the risks could be with the general anesthetic, with everything. And I just felt deep down inside of me that if I went ahead with the surgery right away, that I would probably lose that baby. And I just didn't feel ready to go there. So basically that's when I went out on my quest to go get care from the Ottawa Integrative Cancer Centre, where they combine medical care with alternative care. And so I saw everyone from the acupuncturist to the reflexologist to the medical doctor, the naturopathic doctor, like everyone. I went through the rounds, and in the end got what I needed, and then continued to come here for the vitamin C IV in Edmonton. So we managed to stabilize the tumor without hurting the baby. And then at about 26 weeks, I hit a wall of complete exhaustion. I finally just stopped and said, okay, what do I need to do now? Where am I at? I basically dared to ask my body, what do I need to do now? And I put my hand on my eye and I just said, is it time to let you go? And I just felt this whole feeling over my body, just peace and calm. And because up till that point, I was just in survival mode. I thought, okay, I have to choose at this point. And at that point, I chose the pregnancy. and even though in my mind, everything I had been doing up till then was for my baby, I still wasn't really focused on the baby. And as a midwife, it was a hard realization to know that I wasn't practicing what I was preaching. So I had a little talk with my baby and I asked that baby, I said, okay, are you ready for this surgery? Are you going to survive the surgery? Are we going to do this together? And we did. So I got my eye removed at about 28 weeks. I had kind of plan A and plan B. And if I went into labor after the surgery, I was going to have the baby at the Royal Alex. And if I got through that and managed to recover properly and be able to push a normal amount for a first-time mom, I was going to have my baby with my midwives at Lucina. I ended up not going into preterm labor. I ended up having the birth that I had hoped for at Lucina with my midwives, and I ended up being almost 2 weeks overdue. The main thing that I've learned through that is just have the right priorities, bring your focus back to where it needs to go. And also, the biggest thing was, as a mother, you always want to protect your baby, but to consider your baby as a part of your team and an equal, right? And I mean, I always knew that, and I practiced as a midwife saying, you know, your baby chose you as parents, and you chose that baby. But I just felt like I finally realized, okay, if this baby chose me, this baby can get through whatever it is we need to get through, and we can do it together. And just working as a team made all the difference. And I guess having faith in my baby, not just in me and my body, but in my baby as well, right? It forced me to just stop in my tracks and just fully listen. And I think by doing that, I realized, okay, yes, my body has this knowledge that I maybe wasn't always listening to or honoring. And as much as the specialists around you and the midwives around you and whoever have all these things that they want to share and good advice that they can give you and help you along, when it comes down to it, the main thing is just that little voice inside of you. We all have it. It's just sometimes it's buried under a lot of the noise that happens around us. But I think I definitely know now that as much as there's all these people that have this body of knowledge, I have, like, my body has its own knowledge as well, and that it's important to trust that and go with your intuition.
Throughout this episode, Randy has opened up her heart and told her stories of when things didn't go as planned. In this segment, She shares her triumphant birth story and reminds us that it's not about how we birth, but about who we become through our birthing experience.
This is Kiana Grace Van Miltenberg. She is a week old today. We got our home birth, we got our water birth with midwives, and it was incredible. Absolutely incredible. My own transformation was just learning to trust and trust in my body and just waiting, because she didn't come until 40 weeks and 5 days, and I was starting to get stressed. Labor started on Friday, but I thought it was another false start, and so I just went about my day and went to my mom's and having a nap, and I was waking up every about 30 minutes. I was like, we'll just continue about our day. So we had dinner, and we went about our evening, and then we went home and got Quentin to bed, and then at 10 o'clock I'm like, yeah, we need to time these. So within the hour, they went from every 7 minutes and lasting about a minute to every 3 to 4 minutes and lasting a minute. And so we're like, yeah, we should call the midwife, let her know what's happening. Midwife arrived around 12:40 a.m. and she checked me, and I was still only 2 to 3 centimeters, but I was a lot more effaced, and my cervix was down and her head was engaged. And then Adrian started on the birth pool, and they wanted me to rest if I could, and I was like, I can't be still, I can't lay down, I've got to be moving. And there was quite a few where I was like, I need to squat. 3:22, they checked me, and I was 4 centimeters and fully effaced. And she's like, yeah, you can get in the birth pool, that should help with the back pain. Once I got in, things got a lot more intense, but they spaced out. So I was like, oh, this is a nice break, but when they hit, it took me a second to catch my breath. And then the next contraction hit, and I was pushing, but I wasn't pushing, my body was pushing for me. And I said, I'm pushing, and that's not me doing it. And she's like, okay, we need to call the backup midwife now. My midwife and my doula are fantastic, and they reminded me, they're like, it's okay, you can do this, don't be scared. Because it was just very primal what was happening, and I had to like completely give over control, and I'm like, I want to be in control. I can do this, I'm in control, but I had to just let go and let my body do what it needed to do. I wanted to slowly get her out. And I was able to reach down, and I could feel her bag of waters, and it was really silky and just really beautiful. And then her waters broke, and it felt like seconds. My husband says it was 5 minutes, but it felt like seconds. She was out, and she was there. And we got her out of the water, and she was on my chest, and I turned to my husband and I said, go get Quentin, because I wanted him to meet his little sister. And he came in, and it was 4:55 in the morning. He's exhausted, and then he realized like there's a baby, and we got to have a good cuddle, and my husband and my son cut her cord, and then delivered the placenta, and got to be a family of 4. I felt empowered and heard in this pregnancy, the labor and delivery, just by getting to know my care providers and my midwives, and them becoming my friends, and them hearing about things that were going on, and them just trusting me about knowing my body. Just fully being in that, almost that sisterhood and that womanhood of like what birth is, and being held up just by all the women was just really amazing. And then doing it. After she was born, I felt like I could climb a mountain. I'm like, yeah, I know I need to rest for 3 days, but I'm gonna go climb a mountain because I can do that. No, I'm gonna rest. But I feel like I can climb a mountain. And then we've had some breastfeeding issues, and there's been a few times that I've caught myself talking to myself negatively. I was like, no, you rocked that birth. You got her out, your body did it. It can do it. This is just a blip. And like when you're in the midst of it, it feels a lot longer, but I know looking back, it won't be. And it'll be amazing. And it's empowering because my body can do it, and it has done it, and it will do it. And it's just really really amazing knowing that there's other people that know that my body can do it, and trusting in that, and having the support that I have has just been amazing and overwhelming, and it makes me have faith in humanity in this world again.
Today we've heard a variety of stories of pregnancy and birth when things don't go as planned. If you're struggling, stay tuned to the end of the episode where we'll offer a list of resources. All of our guests triumph despite dealing with painful experiences, and they remind us of the resiliency that is available to all parents as they journey on the transformation to parenthood. Thanks for joining us.